Welcome to the Propreneur Podcast, where we help practice owners become better entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Dino Watt. Welcome to the Propreneur Podcast, everybody. Thanks again for being here. My name is Dino Watt. I'm your host. I'm excited again to share with you some great practices that you can put into your business through our learnings here on the Propreneur Podcast. As always, we're trying to bring you the best tips and tricks and ideas and shortcuts and, for a way lack of an overused word, hacks in your business. And today is no exception. Now, if you have listened to the Propreneur Podcast before and you've got little wisdom nuggets out of it, make sure you share it with your colleagues, share it with your friends and family so that they too can join with you in just making their practices better and the world more awesome. And today we're going to share with you some great pieces of wisdom, and I'll give you a little tip into what we're going to talk about at Pearls of Wisdom with our guest today, Andy Sarpotdar. Andy, thanks for being here.
I'm honored to be here, Dino. Thanks for having me.
Now, Andy is the founder of the Pearls of Mother of Pearls and Orthodontic Pearls events that I know many of the people in the orthodontic world have heard about and have talked to me plenty of times about. So I am thrilled to have you here. Before we get into all of that, though, we always want to hear about your journey and your story around your profession, which in this case is orthodontics. So would you please introduce yourself to everybody?
Of course. Well, thank you for having me, Dino. I'm honored to get to share my story. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that I consider myself co-founder of the Pearls Conference and the forum. I do that along with my colleagues Brian Anderson, Chris Teeters, Greg Ohanian, James Noble, and Doug Palaganis. So
wow, that's a group effort right there.
It's a group effort for sure, and we all bring a unique perspective to the table. And it's been a journey for sure, but a very rewarding one.
Very nice.
A little bit about me. I guess my journey starts in 2013 when I graduated from Columbia University. That's where I did my residency. And I moved to Phoenix, Arizona from scratch. I never lived here before, but my wife is from the Gilbert area. And my wife is also an orthodontist. So we met at Columbia. All good stuff there.
Yeah.
And so I came here with nothing, no connections. And like many of us, I started off in corporate dentistry, working for Pacific Dental and Right Now. And I feel like I learned a lot in those first couple of years working corporate. But I really believe that patients deserved a better experience than what I was able to provide in that setting. Additionally, I felt like I wanted to be able to provide certain treatments that just aren't feasible in that sort of setting, and wanted to continue to grow my professional career. So what I did is I set myself a goal, and like many of us, I started off by looking for a practice to buy. And I said, if I haven't found anything viable that I'm happy with by this deadline, I'm just going to take the plunge and I'm going to do a startup practice.
Wow.
And that's something that, I think most of us would probably want to use as a distant second choice.
Sure.
But sure enough, the deadline hit, and I realized that there was just, there wasn't anything I was passionate about out there. There wasn't anything that really sung to me. So deadline hit, and I took the plunge. And it was a real challenge, those first few years getting that started. But I was lucky to have the support of my wife, and being an orthodontist, that's a unique level of support that not a lot of us get.
Sure.
And things went well. We the first practice grew, and then we recently started our second location in Glendale, Arizona, and that was earlier this year. And that's actually been growing faster than the first one, thank God, because we've been able to scale a lot of the systems that we worked so hard to figure out and implement.
Yeah, I was going to say you're able to shortcut a lot of the challenges you had probably at the very beginning. I had a mentor recently. I was talking about being an entrepreneur for the last 20 years and starting a couple new ventures, and don't want to go through the same stuff I did before. And he's like, "Oh, it's almost impossible because you're shortcutting the time, right? You now have the book of all the information, and now you can just get through the book and get the information a lot faster." So,
I mean, if not for that, I don't think I could have gone through the full startup mode again. I have to be crazy to do that, but maybe I am a little bit crazy. But it's
we got to be a little crazy to be an entrepreneur. Come on now.
Well said. Well said.
So, is your wife practicing with you right now too?
She is. Yeah, we are business partners. So
Nice.
that's been really good. I have to say that I actually started off on my own. She was finishing up her residency on the East Coast. We did do a couple of years of long distance in there. I think those were probably the most challenging years of my life, just overall, with
Mhm.
everything, starting a business while doing long distance. It was in a new area, a lot of challenges and growth in that time. But once she came out here, that's when I really think things started to take off. Is my wife and I, in a lot of ways, we are complementary. We see things. The way I see it, we have the same goals. We're trying to get to the same destination, but we get there in slightly different ways, and that provides a really valuable perspective. For example, I'm more of a big picture person. I'm a high quick start on the Colby test. I'm just like always chasing that shiny object. I'm always like going after it and just like, but I get bored with stuff and like I leave a bunch of uncompleted projects here and there. My wife, on the other hand, she's the high fact finder. She's very diligent about the details. Likes to stay a little bit more in the background, but the way I phrase it is she cleans up my mess. I'm the one I go out there and she's the one who kind of finds a way to make it work, to tie up all the loose ends there. So
Well, that's
it's
so
been awesome.
important. I don't know if you know this or not. I know many people have probably heard me talk about it on the show before, but I started in the industry in the marriage space where I would help higher end entrepreneurs who are married work together, whether it be real estate or doctors or whatever, where there's maybe different philosophies, as you said, like that you complement each other, but you also have some areas where you clean up each other's messes or you help each other
Mhm.
push each other a little more. It's so important to know that about each other and to let each other grow and thrive in those specific areas. You've been able to do this, it sounds like, with a lot of awareness. How did you guys get to that place of being that aware of both of your strengths and complementary aspects of one another?
I mean, that was definitely a journey. I think that a lot of it, our relationship was sort of intuitive. We intuitively sort of grasped this concept that, I mean, from my perspective, she just seemed to, she seemed to get things. Like originally when we first started dating, I was just like, she's just super smart. I was just like, she just gets everything, and I was always so blown away. And as we started to grow in both our relationship and our professional careers, we got a little more sophisticated about it. We started taking, DISC assessments and the Myers-Briggs and Colby testing. And, mostly we were doing that kind of for fun. But it was interesting that on every single test that we took, we would have polar opposites in every single category. And for a while, I was just like, what is going on here? Like, why do we get along so well if we are so different? And that's when it really struck me is our goals are aligned, our mission,
Yes.
our endpoint is aligned,
Yep.
but we just get there differently. And I recognize, all these things that, and the other thing I should mention is that she would say the same thing about me. It was like, she would always say that she was so impressed by what I would do. And I'd be like, I don't get it. Like what I'm doing is just like, that's just the easy stuff. Like, I don't get it, and I was like, I always felt bad. I'm dumping all the hard stuff on her. And I felt guilty about it. And I would try to take it back on myself and just get completely overwhelmed with those things. And I think it was really the Colby test that really revealed to us. And that's when it really clicked, is that I recognized the work that I consider the grunt work, the stuff that I just hate and just feel guilty putting on anyone else, is the stuff that she thrives on. That's her native genius. That's the stuff that just comes naturally to her, and she would do that all day long. She draws energy from those sorts of tasks. Whereas with me, it drains me. Like, I spend 5 minutes on the tedium, and I'm just done. I can't focus. I hate it. But you put me in a marketing position where I'm out in front of doctors and networking. I'm just like, that's where I thrive. That's where I hit my flow. And that's just something that drains her, that sort of thing. So I think that's when we really recognized that, and started to embrace it and recognize that that's a strength.
Well, what you say is so valuable, right? Whether it's with your life partner, your spouse, or your business partner. If you have the right vision and you know what you're working towards, you can get through those and you can see, oh, well, in order to get there, this person is she's a better navigator and I'm a better driver, like whatever it might be, so that you can actually be focused. I often say that vision has to be relatable and retellable and so strong that when you get off path or the economy tanks or you have a bad employee situation, that you're tethered to that vision in order to make sure you don't get lost in the weeds. That's the same thing with your relationship, right? Where you're having this vision together, you know where you want to go. Yep. I'm assuming, I don't know this, but maybe your marriage is different than everybody else's, but sometimes she might tick you off and you might tick her off. But the fact of the matter is we can get over that faster because we have the vision that's tethering us to the same goal. I think that's awesome. And what a lesson already that is for some. There's a pearl.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's
a pearl.
We can just end the podcast now. We're done.
That's right. You have no idea how many people I'm sure listening to this are going like, dang it, I got to get on the same page with my spouse and get that same vision going on. So that's awesome. Well, so you guys work together, you built up these practices. You have now created this idea of the mother of pearls. I think everybody who has ever heard about this or is now hearing about it for the first time, I think it'd be really important for us to hear the story of here you're building a practice. You decide to build something else, something that is really in some, I think a lot of ways, an altruistic business to help other people kind of have the same feeling and vibe and learn from you. How did that all come about?
Well, my experience with the Facebook groups has always been a really intimate one. You ask most people, anyone listening to this has probably seen me. I'm just like always on there posting, it's certainly a double-edged sword, but in my experience, when I started my practice, I just felt completely in over my head, and this was before I'd really discovered any Facebook groups. And I think like a lot of us, I felt like I bit off more than I can chew. There was so much about running a business that I just didn't even know I didn't know. And every day it was something new. I just remember there were nights when I would just stare at the ceiling thinking, what have I done? And how am I going to get out of this? There's only so many books you can read. There's only so many, and there's time factors there too, because you're working a full-time job while starting a practice. It's really hard to learn as you go. Around that time, I did discover the Facebook groups, and I think they were just coming into their own at that point. And all of a sudden, it was my lifeline. I had instant access to experts across the country of all different walks of life, all orthodontists, all business owners, but these are people who were either struggling through the same things that I was, or had already struggled through it and had the answers that I needed, or at least a perspective on how I can solve these issues. So that became huge for me. I mean, I was just on there constant. I wanted to learn, and I just wanted to meet everyone, and it was huge. Something that a lot of us struggle with when we come out. We all recognize the value of a mentor, but it can be challenging finding a mentor. Facebook really streamlines that process, and in a lot of ways gives you access to multiple mentors, and you can vet people. You can see, well, who's the one that I vibe with the most, or it doesn't have to be just one. There's plenty out there. So that was really huge for me. I really owed a lot to Facebook. Certainly my sanity, probably a lot of the growth that I saw in my business. Around a couple years into that, I actually got the idea. I was talking with some friends, and I got the idea to start my own Facebook group. And one of the things we recognize is that public Facebook group, there's certain discussions you have there, but there's certain discussions that are better had behind an NDA protected, or a regional exclusivity. So there's certain things that you just don't feel comfortable talking about when there's someone right down the street listening in. So we started a regionally exclusive Facebook group called Ortho 2.0, and that became really successful. It's a smaller group, obviously regionally exclusive, and that was right before orthodontic pearls came into existence. And I think it was my involvement with Ortho 2.0 that attracted Brian to recruit me to help him found orthodontic pearls. And orthodontic pearls, there were some other Facebook groups at the time. A lot of them went under around that time, and there was this big void. And we learned a lot from watching those. We saw what went right, what went wrong, and ultimately what caused them to collapse. And we decided we wanted to do something different. We were gonna create this thing and solve a lot of the problems that had come from the previous groups.
What was one of those biggest lessons that you learned that you thought, oh, we need to write this, make this better for next time?
Well, I think the best way that I can put it is that there was some of the groups can tend to be a little bit authoritarian. Where it's very, and there's room for that. There's a place for groups like that. But I felt like when all of it's all centered around one philosophy and one person, it tends to go down some weird directions. It tends to foster a groupthink mentality. And I know a lot of times there would be a topic that came up for discussion and it would just get shot down immediately, or the person would get kicked out of the group.
Wow.
That's not what we talk about here, or you don't challenge me. This is my group, and that's it. They'd be blacklisted, and that's something that really bothered me about it. And that was one of our founding principles, is that's not the way that we're going to be in this group. This is not about us. This is not about me. This is about the membership. And we are here as facilitators of the discussion. We're here to keep it respectful. We're here to make sure it doesn't go too far off the rails, and we need to make it safe for people to post and facilitate that exchange of information. But we're not here to hand down a decree. We're not here to say this is the way you need to practice and this is the way that the profession needs to go. We are here to facilitate a discussion because it belongs to all of us, really.
Different strokes, different folks, man. And it's like, this allows you to, man, it's the buffet, it's the garden, right? I mean, all those analogies are cliche, but it's true. Like, absolutely. If you're going to shut down the conversation, what's the point of having the conversation? You want to speak in your own little silo, cool. But yeah, and how, I don't know about you, but I know that through some of those discussions, now there's that, joke that no post on Facebook ever changed anybody's mind. But I will say that in groups and stuff, for me especially, it's given me new ideas and new ways to think about stuff. Absolutely. And allowed me to go, oh, I could actually implement that into it's the reason why I belong to masterminds. It's the reason why I have private coaching, because it gives me just another perspective. I can't see my own swing. I can't smell my own breath. Yes. So it allows me to have that. That's fascinating. How did that then turn into actual live event? So you've got the Facebook group that's still going strong. How did that turn into a live event? Well, so in the beginning, this thing was growing like crazy, and we were doing a lot of work because we have to vet all these guys individually, and that's something that we do personally. We make sure. I mean, there's a couple of vendors who have been grandfathered in, but by and large, it is all orthodontists. So that can be a challenge because you get all kinds of people applying for this. I mean, when you get to a certain number, it just shows up on people's feeds and they just join whatever group they see. Sure. Yep. So one of the things we really believe in strongly, and I know, we can take some heat for that sometimes, is that it's in the nature of that safety. We want to make sure that the kind of discussions we want to have are discussions that we may not want our referring doctors to hear, and it's not that we're talking any kind of crap or anything like that. A lot of people think that. But really what it comes down to is these are unique struggles. We need to be able to share our failures on there too. Yep. And that can be really difficult even in the best of circumstances. But imagine that Pearls is an open forum. There's no regional exclusivity. Imagine that you're concerned that one of your 5 competitors out there is reading your failure on here. You're posting a case that you didn't keep your grasp on at this time. It got away from you. And you don't want to be worried in the back of your mind that maybe he could show that to one of my referring doctors, or maybe my referring doctor sees that and interprets it in a way that I didn't intend. Yep. So there's huge value in that. Anyway, that was part of our mission. But in order to do that, you do have to screen very, very carefully for this, and it's a lot of work that goes into that. Well, the fact of the matter is that I'm very much an optimist. I believe the best in everybody, probably too much to a fault, like my wife says sometimes, right? There are people, no matter how good intention the group is, and your hope for everybody else, your positivity that everybody's going to want to support one another. There are people who are going to use it against you. There are going to be people who are predatory out there. Out of whatever, we can talk about their jealousy. We can talk about their own lack of their own belief in themselves. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is it's there. Absolutely. And so to have this really safe space, I think it's really cool of you to do that.
It's been hugely valuable, and I think that's why it really has taken off. To continue our story, we were getting into it. And we were just like talking about like this thing was just exploding, and what do we do with this now? Where do we take this? And we had always kind of like had these discussions about should we have a meeting, and it's felt like a lot to bite off because, like you said, we were all practice owners too. Every one of us, we're business practice owners first, and this is something we do on the side. So meeting felt like it was a huge undertaking. However, around that time, Embrace was starting to come into its own. It wasn't a very well-known product yet, but a few of us had actually gotten in a little early with Embrace. It was something that really sung to us, and we believed in their mission, and we were exploring it and becoming early adopters of this product. So we got to know the CEO, John Pham, pretty well, as well as the whole team over there, and it's truly inspiring what they're able to accomplish. And during some of these talks, I remember John was talking. He says, "Hey, have you guys ever considered a meeting? If so, we'd love to be your platinum sponsor or diamond sponsor. We'd love to help out with this and provide our resources to facilitate this because we love what you guys are doing. Our missions are aligned." And at that point, we were like, "Well, we've already got the first seed right there. I mean,
sure,
you got to strike while the iron is hot." So
yep.
we took the leap. We just jumped right in and started recruiting some additional sponsors. And again, this is something none of us had any. I should correct it. James Noble, he had some experience with meetings in Canada before, but the rest of us it's again another startup. We have no idea what we're doing, but we're going to figure it out. And we're really grateful to Embrace in those beginning years because they had some event planning experience. They helped us out. But it was a lot. It was mostly on us, and it was a huge undertaking putting on that first meeting. But we worked through it.
How many years ago was that, by the way?
That must have been a little over 2 years ago because we just finished our second meeting this year in October, and the first 1 year, so about 2 years ago.
Wow! Congratulations, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, and so it was very, very unique experience. It went very well. And then we decided, the second one we wanted to make even bigger. We added a staff track and all new problems the second year. There's always something new that comes up.
Sure.
We did our feet under us at that point. We had some systems going and it went a bit smoother.
So one of the roles that I like to play as the host of the show is imagine being the guy in the car that's driving to work and listening to the conversation. And what questions would I have? And I think the first question that pops up in my mind right now about mother of pearls or about the event itself, you mentioned vision a moment ago with your wife and your business. What's the vision for this? What do you hope to create?
Well, I think that the way that we see it, the conference, the meeting is really an extension of the forum, and they're synergistic forces. And what we're really trying to do is it's really about the medium of exchange. We want this to be something where people from all areas come together and are able to share their unique perspectives in order for us all to grow from the experience. If we see enough different perspectives about a certain topic and we're able to debate those and look at those in a respectful manner, we really believe that that's how the profession grows. That's how we grow as individuals. And I'd say in a nutshell, if I had to put my finger on it, that would be our primary mission is the exchange of that information. And that doesn't exist in a lot of places. A lot of times certain topics that get so politicized. You bring up something like, Small Direct Club is one that I think most people feel more or less the same way about that.
Yeah.
But you talk about something like Invisalign, for example, and you go to a lot of groups and it's either pro Invisalign or it's anti Invisalign. And one of the challenges of running a group of diverse perspectives with such polarizing topics is that, sometimes the pendulum can swing one way or another. And it's our role as admins, at least the way we see it, to keep that more moderate. When it goes too far this way, we got to bring it back here. And then the same thing over there. And we have certain rules in place, certain guidelines that help us navigate that. For example,
I was going to ask you, yeah, what's one of them?
so above all, we have actually, if you give me a sec, I could even pull this up. We have it right on
Really?
our Facebook group. Yeah, these are some of the questions that are asked at everyone who applies for pearls has to answer these questions. And let me just, if you
So
give me,
as you're looking that up, it's an application process to actually attend the live event as well.
not the live event. No, the live event, if you're an orthodontist, you can attend that.
Hey, there's a new idea though, right? Like what if you had an event where it's like application only, like you can, with my Propreneur network, that's one of the things we want to make sure the right people are in that room. I belong to a mastermind where the gentleman who runs it says, look, you're not paying for the people who are in the room, you're paying for the people who aren't in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you've been to those events before where it's like the people that try to take it over and the people that really are going, okay, you're not in alignment with our vision and our focus. So what are some of these areas?
All right, so I'm just going to read these right off of the rules here. So the number one is be courteous, be professional. This is one that I've already spoken about a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Pearls is committed to fostering a welcoming environment. Healthy debate is encouraged, but it must be respectful and language must be clean. No tolerance for personal attacks. Nice. Ad hominem, that's the buzzword nowadays. Mm-hmm. Number two is be generous and get approval for self-promotion. So seek to give more than you take, share promotional items of significant benefit to the profession, but seek approval prior to posting any advertisements, especially if you have any personal financial benefit. And that segues right into the third one, which is financial disclaimers. So please disclose any official significant financial relationships with any products or company. Make it clear in applicable posts, but obviously not ad nauseum. I mean, sometimes you get the sarcastic sort of like, like we'll have to do this again. And it's not about that. Really, what this is about is we just there's all kinds of biases in there. We can't pick up everyone. We know that there's more than just financial, but this is an obvious one.
Sure.
And if you're affiliated with a company and you're talking about it, that doesn't make your argument less valid, but just show that. Exactly. No,
it's so funny. I've seen those before where it's like, so has anybody heard about such ABC company? I really think they're pretty amazing. And, like they try to sneak in, they're like, yes. I'm asking a question by telling you how you should really, it's just like, talk about it. Okay. We all have our things we like, whether it be, your Bose headphones or your, Mac computer. It's okay. Just talk about it, especially if you have some sort of gain around it. And like you said, it doesn't make it any less valuable. Matter of fact, most people who really like something, it's because, or have invested in something, hopefully it's because they really like it.
Exactly. And that's the way it should be. So
yeah, absolutely.
So there's two others. Number four is foster unity, collegiality, and group strength. No one will protect the interests of orthodontic patients or the orthodontic specialty like orthodontists. Let's band together. Let's not seek to create division. The saying is true, together we're better.
100%.
So, again, this is one I'd like to get into a little bit more with that, but that's one of the most important in my opinion. But the fifth one, not to be forgotten, is censorship. We believe in open dialogue to help find the best practices. We do not believe in strong censorship. However, a violation of group rules will result in official warning or removal from the group. And it's rare that we ever have to do something like that. Occasionally we've had to censor something here and there, but it's about when it crosses a level of disrespect. When it starts going off the rails and it starts getting into attacking people on a personal level or creating an environment where people might think it's unsafe to share their vulnerabilities. That's not what the group is about, and we do have to protect from that.
I think the value of your group is always in the vulnerability and the level of vulnerability, right? And that's for anything. Seth Godin, I don't know if you've read Tribes before, right? That's exactly what you're creating here is a tribe of people who feel like they can get great value, have some vulnerability, know that we're all human, know that it's not a race against each other. I'm a fan of, I used to belong years ago in a group called the CEO Space, and their whole thing was it's not about competition, it's about cooperation. Yes. And what you're creating here is that cooperation.
And that's really, that's our point four, which I would say that would be our main focus above all right now is, we're really trying to foster unity within the profession. That is a monumental task, to be quite honest with you.
Sure.
It's amazing with the perspective that we have from the admin level, is that there are so many topics that are just so highly politicized in orthodontics, in business ownership. And a lot of times what you see is that you'll have one group or another. It's like you're either Fox News or you're MSNBC.
Yeah, right.
We're trying to be, I mean, I hate to compare us to NPR, but like we're trying to be more in the middle, and
right.
We want it to be fun and entertaining and a good group of people. However, we're not trying to take sides politically. I mean, there's some things that are pretty clear cut. I mean, I think if I remember correctly, the one stance we have taken is that we do not believe that SDC is a standard of care.
Oh, yes.
Other than that, it's or any kind of at-home aligner. I don't want to single anyone out, but it's aside from that, let's just have the discussion. There's merit to any point of view, and we believe that through respectful discussion, the truth comes out. And if you discuss it long enough, something you're going to figure out whether it's applicable or not.
Could I even add to that of the area of like, if you discuss it long enough, your personal truth can come out, right? Like the truth is truth for whoever that truth is, right? In the sense of, look, there's opportunities in every place of business if you can find it, if you're willing to look hard enough. And it doesn't mean that, let's just say, for example, let's go with the real easy example. Okay, Invisalign, whether people like Invisalign or not, the fact of the matter is it's here. And some people are going to thrive off it. I have a doctor client who is about 70% Invisalign, and he's doing great. He loves everything about it. Where I have another doctor who's like, no way, I'm going to the blue ocean where everybody's going to the red ocean of I'm pushing more regular traditional braces. Cool. Like it doesn't make one right or the other. When I stand in front of a group of people, I usually start off with, my name is Dino Watt, and I'm the best in the world at what I do. And I'm standing in front of a group of people who are the best in the world at what they do. The point is we all can be the best in the world at what we do. It doesn't have to make or take away anything from someone else. And so what it sounds like you're creating here is a group of people, hopefully, that can realize the phrase, all ships rise with the tide. It doesn't matter what your tide is, as long as we're all rising in this industry, because the fact of the matter is with, what is it, roughly 8,000 orthodontists in the country?
Sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, like that's not a big group.
No.
So you need to support each other.
Well, it's, we hear the phrase colleagues, not competitors thrown out a lot. And I think, sometimes that can be, that's Neil Kravitz's phrase, and he's been a huge champion for that. Yeah. We're honored to have him as such an integral part of the Pearls community. He's actually speaking at our conference next year.
Nice.
And he's always been a huge supporter. But, colleagues, not competitors, I've thought about that a lot. And I thought, how can we interpret what that means exactly? And, as colleagues, not competitors, does that mean that, we just kind of lie down and just not compete? It's like, that's not what it means to me. I think that what it means is that we're colleagues first, and we want to be the best that we can be, but we can't lose sight of the fact that, that other orthodontist across the street, that guy, ironically, there's no one who's in a more identical situation than that guy right there. And he may practice a little bit differently than me, but that's his choice. And it's good that we have different practices. If we were the exact same, that would be the absolute worst. I mean, we need to find our own niche, right? But if he's practicing in his niche, that's awesome. I want to practice in my niche and let him be that. And that doesn't mean that he's below standard. That doesn't mean that he's a bad guy. We're just, we're doing different things. I do agree that there's so much focus right now on inwards, focusing on other orthodontists. One of the things that has come up in the past that we've had to really rein in is the tendency to throw another orthodontist up on a public group in a post about, look what this person has done and how bad is this, and then just get everyone else to pile on and start validating that. And to me, it's like, it doesn't matter what that person did. It doesn't matter how wrong that person was, even if they were wrong. But that's just not the way you go about these things. And what is the precedent that sets? It's, first of all, what that person did, let's assume that it's something that we would all consider bad. Well, are they really the culprit here? Or is it the greater force that they've become ensconced in? And really, the way that I see it, they're maybe the closest source. They're the easiest scapegoat because we have access to them on the internet. We have access to them in this group. And, some people just feel so angry about these topics that they're going to lash out, and they feel like they're being productive by stringing this person up. And I just don't see it that way. And I think nothing hurts us more as a profession than what we're doing to ourselves.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's not easy. I don't expect everyone to get on the same page on every single topic, but we certainly should learn to support each other in spite of our differences, because as different as we are, I guarantee you there's greater threats outside of the profession than there are inside.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're going to have any way to overcome some of the challenges that are happening, whether it be economical or corporate or DSO, look, you're a lot stronger together than you are apart. And going back to the pointing people's flaws out, right? I for sure don't want to be someone who is marked, who is known for my bad day, because we all have them. My bad decision, right? Like that's not the essence of my life, is the one thing that I messed up. And we tend to judge people by their actions, but judge ourselves by our intention. And
Exactly.
we all have a bad action or bad, and it's like, and of course we're going to think ourselves the best. I love that you point that out, because if we're going to keep a space for continual learning, I don't know if I want to be, and I'm not an orthodontist, but just in life, right? I don't want to be in a group where I can't be vulnerable because it might be used against me later on by someone who doesn't agree with my vulnerability or my mistake. And I'm going to make them because I'm human.
You're 100% right. And I think we see that as admins, and that's our mission, is to create a place that is safe. And you got to be smart. You don't want to post everything, air all of your dirty laundry out there, but certainly it should be a place where you can be vulnerable and discuss certain topics, because how else do we learn? It drives me crazy when I see a group that's just like all cherry picked cases, and everything always goes perfectly. I mean, that is so, it has its place, but really do you learn from the best outcomes? I mean, certainly a little bit, but what we really learn is like when things go wrong, how did they go wrong? How do we screw this one up? And not just with cases, but just anything, life in general. And really, those are the questions that bother me about myself. It's like, we're all high achievers. We're all type A's. We want to get the 100% every single time. And we, as orthodontists, as business owners, we pick apart the tiniest little things. That's what we get paid to do. And I want to focus a little bit on like, how do I make those things better? We don't learn as much, I don't believe, from our victories as we do from our failures. And if we can create an environment where we're okay sharing those failures, we're okay sharing our vulnerabilities and times when we struggled and the things that we continue to struggle with, and open ourselves up to accept constructive criticism, to accept feedback and perhaps some advice about, hey, and it takes vulnerability on the other side too, because hey, I was there, I know what you're going through. Yep. Here's how I fixed it, and can even point out some roadblocks. I really think that's where you hit the pay dirt, where the value is.
Well, I think we all find that value and that brotherhood, that sisterhood, that sense of community when we can talk about those mistakes. Matter of fact, you gave me an idea as you were saying it, going like, man, how cool would it be? And maybe somebody's done this before, I haven't seen it, but how cool would it be at an event such as Mother of Pearls or anywhere else where you see a speaker go up there and say, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over my top 10 worst mistakes in my career. I'm not going to talk about how I made them better. I'm going to show you all my top 10 mistakes.
Yes.
What a cool experience that would be, just to see somebody just throw it out there, and everybody in that audience, I guarantee, would be appreciative and say, oh yeah, I get it. I've been there. Yep. Me too.
I mean, talk about a differentiator. I mean, that'd be fantastic. It's funny you mentioned that. I was at dinner with Chris Ronconi a little while ago, and we were talking about this exact thing. It was me, Chris, Sheldon Salins. He's an awesome guy up in Northern California. and my wife, Jenny, and we're talking about this, and like, it was actually at PCSO, and we're talking about the Mother of Pearls conference, and like, what is going to be the next big meeting space? What hasn't been done before? Because, there's so many meetings out there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's getting crowded. I mean, even some of the regional meetings are starting to combine.
Yeah.
And, what is going to be the next big thing? And I honestly feel it's that. You don't see that a lot. Any meetings you go to, it's the successes, and it's the cherry picked successes that they go through. Chris Ronconi was telling me that when he used to lecture on TADS, he went to Japan, I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this story, but he mentioned that he goes in there and like, oh, it's all these huge name guys, and they're showing these incredible cases, and he feels like, oh, this is a lot to live up to, some big shoes to fill. And so he gets up there and he gives a lecture on failed TAD cases. And
Nice.
out of seven speakers, if I'm not mistaken, he was the only one who showed TAD failures. And the room was silent. They were enthralled. He said he has never gotten so much positive feedback than after that lecture. And I'm sitting here thinking, we had some more private conversations. We're just opening up. John Pham was there too, from Embrace. I mean, CEO of Embrace, talking to me about this vulnerable stuff. It was
So
incredible.
great.
I'm like, this is the kind of stuff that we really need to be discussing, because on the one hand, I mean, Facebook it makes it so easy to compare yourself.
Yep.
And you're constantly comparing yourself to the best versions of other people.
Yep.
And it creates such a dissatisfaction. It creates this idea of entitlement, like I should be there, and how are they getting there? And they make it seem so easy. And like, gosh, I've struggled with this personally. There was a time when I hit a rock bottom point where I'm just like so dissatisfied with where I'm at in life. And but then when you take a step back, it's like, well, I've got everything that I set out for already. If I were to look at my life 10 years ago and like, why did I get into orthodontics? Why did I choose this career? Everything that I envisioned for myself is here. Every day I live that. And yet, why am I so dissatisfied? Why do I feel like it's not enough? And why do I, why
compare
can't
yourself?
I?
Yeah.
It's it really comes down to that comparison. So when we're just seeing the successes, when we're just seeing all this stuff, it creates this void. It creates this discrepancy between where we're at and where we think we should be, where we think we deserve to be, because that person did the same school as me. Why can't I be like that? Well, the fact of the matter is, if you talk to these people, number one, it didn't happen overnight.
No.
And number two, that's not the whole story. It's like those same people. It's like the bigger you get, the more successful, outwardly successful you get, you don't get to shed your problems. You just get to have better problems.
Yeah.
And it's those are the kind of stories we need to hear. It's like, I want to hear, what are the problems that big guy is having? And because he's struggling with the same emotions that I am. He's struggling with the same feelings and drive that I am. That doesn't ever go away.
Yep.
It's just he's at a different level. His problems are maybe $10 million problems, whereas mine, $1 million. It's like we should always be, instead of striving to get to that end point, to get to that point where we just made it, we should be striving to have better problems. And in order to do that, I really believe we need to start sharing what are these problems that we're seeing.
100%. I have a friend of mine who runs a podcast. I was just a guest on it a while ago, and he has a anonymous group. It's not a Facebook group, but an anonymous group that he's created. Men, I mean, you're talking from all types of industries, multi-million-dollar business owners, some famous people, supposedly. You don't know because it's all anonymous, but they'll say in there, it's like, hey, I just finished my third movie, or I've run a team of 100, and they talk, because anonymous, they say the stuff that no one would ever hear outside of that, because it's a space where they can just be vulnerable and no one's given that space. And I mean, this dude is a multimillionaire just off of this group alone because of what he's able to farm out to people and let people know about different places they can go. And he does this as a service. It's amazing. And a full circle moment, hopefully, here with this podcast here. I think a lot of that comparison, a lot of that pointing out, or that feeling of ineptitude, comes from what you mentioned at the very beginning of not having a vision, of not really knowing what it is. Because if you have that vision and you really believe in that vision and it can be grounded, even the distractions, even the other people who you feel are doing better than you, quote unquote, better than you, it won't take you off track. It might make you look elsewhere for just a second, but if you really have that strong vision, it will keep you on track. And that's what I hope that people take away from this episode, is really learning how to create that vision and have a sense of, be vulnerable. Find a place like Mother of Pearls, find a place like Ortho Pearls while you're up on Facebook, and find that tribe that you can be vulnerable with. I really think that's so important.
100%.
I can talk to you all day long about this stuff.
I feel like you're scratching the surface, man.
We are. We're going to have to do a part 2. This is amazing. I just want to really just tell you so much thank you for being a part of this and just sharing, because I really believe that somebody's driving their car right now, listening to it in their home or in their office when everybody else is gone. And I hope that they have gotten permission and given themselves permission to be a little more vulnerable, to be able to reach out to people like yourselves or other members of the Pearls group, because it's needed, it's necessary, and it's going to change lives. I really believe that.
Well, I just like to, I'd like to invite them to, it's okay to be vulnerable. And I understand, it can be a scary thing, but, reach out to me. I'm on Facebook all the time, just like, if you don't feel comfortable, like send me a private chat, and like, I'll do my best to to help you here, but I can tell you as an admin, we have your back, and it's like, if you feel you need to get out there and be vulnerable, it's like, we'll watch that, that's our role. We're going to protect your right to share your vulnerabilities. And,
so awesome.
I really, that's our vision for the group. And that's where we really feel we can make a positive impact on the profession.
So important. So important. Well, I could talk to you all day. I'm going to wrap this up with our 6 rapid fire questions that we love to ask everybody, just to get some more insight into them. Were you willing to play?
Absolutely. Let's do it. I'll do my best.
These are our rapid fire questions that help us really get to know you a little bit more and to help everybody out even more so than you already have. So number 1, there's a lot, I know, but what's the one thing that you really wish they would have taught you back in school?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think entrepreneurship, I hope that's not a cop-out answer, but just in general, these principles of entrepreneurship. When you jump in and you're just figuring this out as you go, it's like building a boat while you're drowning.
That's a great analogy. It's so true.
I've also heard jumping off a cliff and trying to build a plane on the way down.
Oh, jeez.
But it really, if I could have been more prepared for that, and I think there's a lot of people who feel that same way, it really would give a leg up, and it's so important in the current climate.
I won't be able to go too deep into this, but I truly believe that if the schools would just do a little more of that, not only would it be a great service to you, but think of the amount of people that you could help even more so than you already do, right?
Absolutely.
The bandwidth that you would have to serve more, as opposed to having to figure out how to serve and how to be an entrepreneur. I mean, look, entrepreneur is a journey anyway, and it's going to be a journey your whole life being an entrepreneur, but to have some sort of push, some sort of understanding of what race you're getting into before you actually start the race, that'd be great.
Yes.
That'd be great. What's a book that you believe every private practice owner should be reading?
Oh, okay. I have a lot of these. Okay, I'm narrowing it down to one. I'm just going to look at my bookshelf real quick. There's so many good ones. So here's I think, can I say 2?
Sure.
Okay. The first one is, I'd say Innovator's Dilemma is a huge one. Okay. I think that it makes so many things clear about many of the struggles that we're focusing on, as sometimes we're the underdog, sometimes we're the top dog, but it makes a lot of those principles sort of fit. It helps us understand what's going on with SDC, what might be going on, what is and isn't. That was a really life-changing book, I think. Now the second
Who's the
one,
author of that one? Do you know who the author is of that? We're going to put in the show notes.
gosh, you're really testing me.
That's okay. If not, we'll find it. We'll put it in the show notes. We're good.
I can always Google it, but
No, you're good.
so that's a great one. The second one, hey, gosh, there's just so many. I feel like
I know. It's a hard question.
I'm going to go with one that I read recently that I feel really changed my life. And it's not necessarily directed towards entrepreneurship. However, it is directed towards something that we all struggle with. And me personally, I've struggled with immensely. And that is Dale Carnegie's How to Stop Worrying and Start Living.
Wow.
This is
You're going deep cut there. That's a deep cut.
Didn't think I would go there, huh? And
yeah.
Like I said, like there's so many books out there on entrepreneurship that I'd love to recommend, but just for your own life, I think that this is so huge because we struggle so much with the unknown, with worrying about things that probably will never happen. I mean, one classic example, look at what's happening with SDC right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that was going to be the end of the profession.
Oh yeah.
Like it's in its death throes, you know. So, or who knows what happens there? I don't think that's all going away entirely. But look at where we were so worried and how much mental real estate was taken up by worrying about that. And now it's. I mean, how many of us are really threatened by that? Has it affected all of our practices in a meaningful way? I mean, Adobe Prero would tell you that it's actually going to increase our retreats, and it's a rising tide, right?
I cannot wait for the person to put into their practice, do the program of the Smile Regret Club buyback program, where, you know, bring in your retainers, your liners, and we're going to give you, 10% match to your product. I can't wait for that. I think it's going to be great. Absolutely. Opportunity.
Yeah, maybe I'll steal that idea.
All right. So in my book, I'm a big fan of obviously culture and team performance. I believe that's the foundation of business growth, and you can create a magnetic practice by focusing on those two areas. But as you go around, you talk to these doctors, you listen to them on your Facebook group. What do you feel is the single biggest challenge that practice owners have when it comes to their team and their office culture?
Implementation. Execution. I think that we all can learn. We can learn the principles. We're very good at that. That's how we got to where we're at.
So true.
We can read the books, go to the meetings. Inspiring our teams to carry it out and keeping them accountable is something that I think we all universally struggle with, no matter what level you're at. Some people have figured it out a little bit better, and personally, I think that comes down to understanding people. Yeah. The most successful guys out there that I see, the one thing that they all have in common is that they understand people and how to influence them. So
true. So true. That EQ over the IQ is so important. So before we get to the last couple of questions, how can people reach out to you?
So Facebook is one way. It's easy. Just look up Andy Sarpotdar. There is a second Andrew Sarpotdar account that I use for my team. And my staff is on that one. So Andy Sarpotdar is a good way. You're welcome to send me an email anytime. My personal email is andy.sarpotdar@gmail.com.
And spell Sarpotdar for everybody.
Okay, of course. S as in Sam, A-R, P as in Peter, O, T as in Thomas, D as in David, A-R.
Awesome.
It's a mouthful.
Great. That's great. Well, that's great. It's awesome. All right. So this is a real tough one, but just off the top of your head, if you had to pick the best advice you've ever received in life or business, what comes to you?
All right. So this is one that, I'm going to go with it just came right in my head because it's a little bit recent. It's something that I've struggled with, but Dr. Jamie Reynolds told me your practice is like a chess game and you have to protect the king. And think about what that means in a sense. Like,
love that. That's great.
How many of us, we act like the queen? We're the one indispensable player on that board. We're the one person who can do everything in the office. And so we do it. We'll go fill in the gaps. We go where we're needed. And oftentimes we're the primary source for problem solving. if we're going to scale, if we're going to be successful, we need to start thinking of our practices like a chess game, and we are the kings there. We need to protect ourselves from anything that does not require a dental license to do. And the game that we're playing as entrepreneurs is building a machine, is building this system that will allow even ourselves to be replaceable. But
Yes.
the doctor is the doctor, and it's so tempting, because a lot of times it's easier to just jump in and do it ourselves than it is to empower someone or to teach someone to do it. But that has been my mantra ever since I heard it, and I'm committed to it. It's harder than it sounds. It's really hard for us to let go of that control, but that is such an imperative skill to scaling and being successful in business.
Wow, what a great note to end on, because that is so true. It's so important for us to remember that we as business owners are our most important asset. And so we got to take care of it. We got to take care of it 100%. You got to go and recreate, recreate yourself. You got to take that time off. You got to support yourself so you can support others. It's so true. Well, the very last question I have for you then is the best resource or tool that you've ever had to grow your practice. What do you think it is?
Well, now we're going to tie it right back at the beginning with Facebook. By far, Facebook and the connections that it's afforded me, the mentorship from all areas of the profession. Facebook has been the best resource for me for growing my practice by far.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's great. Man, I can't tell you how awesome this whole time has been with you, and to be able to share with you and share with everybody else listening to this. I just want to thank you so much for your time and for your energy here today. I know it's after work hours for you that you're able to share so much with everybody here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Of course, it's been my pleasure, Dino. I'm honored to be a part of this. I love what you're doing here, and I look forward to being a regular listener.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll probably, I know we're going to have you back on, because we could have done a whole hour on just some of the stuff you just mentioned just now. So thank you so much, everybody, for if you're listening to this, please reach out. Make sure you go check out the Facebook group, send a personal email, and make sure to share this episode with those of your colleagues in this area. Just like you have the Mother of Pearls and the Orthodontic Pearls group, that is a tribe. We're creating a tribe here as the Propreneurs, and I really appreciate all of you listening and sharing it with your friends and family. Until next time, don't forget that our whole goal here is to help you be more proactive, productive, and profitable in all areas of your life and business. We'll see you on the next episode, everybody. Thanks so much again for listening to the Propreneur Podcast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do so. Also, if you feel like you might be a good fit for our podcast as a guest, or know somebody who you think would be, go ahead and email us at dino@dinowatt.com. Again, thanks for support. We'll see you on the next episode.